start from introducing from the perspective of the committee member, how we can promote the role of civil society engagement in work of treaty bodies on one side, and on another side we have another dilemma: how to together in holistic approach, civil society from Eastern European countries, government agencies, gender equality institutions, and those international and regional bodies, how can we cooperate and promote synergies and dialogue in order to address anti-gender movements in the country.
Хорошо.
So we have two objectives. One, to discuss what is good reporting and how civil society can shape a future gender equality agenda through reporting, what opportunities it gives, what is its influence, and how we should conduct the work and strategize work and have a holistic and clear vision of what we are doing on one side, and on another side, how to work together on strengthening entire machinery from very bottom, very grassroots level, from enterprises on the ground to entire system, which is failing in many cases to accelerate equality, and which is have a serious internal gaps, which is that is the reason why we are moving so slowly, because the system is not working the way it should, and there are gaps. There are many achievements. I do not want to diminish achievements of entire treaty body system and human rights work in the region, but it's not of the pace we dream of and the pace we want to. And then there are several obstacles to it. So I need your participation in scrutiny of these obstacles and how we can address these obstacles and how we can work together in promoting better dialogue, better implementation, and better accountability regarding women's human rights and regarding equality discourse within our countries. So,
Леа, огромное спасибо. Вы очень хорошо начали с вопросов. Я хочу воспользоваться этим моментом, чтобы фактически самопрезентовали вашу сессию.
Извините, what is your is there any comment you want to add, or do you want to share some idea? You are welcome at any stage to interrupt and just to raise your hand, and Marta will moderate us too. Thank you.
Лика, на самом деле как раз Шахла сейчас модерирует
Я попробую смодерировать, Лика, потому что вы так энергично вступили сразу в тему. Я хочу поприветствовать всех наших участников на сегодняшнем дне. Сегодня у нас 9-й и последний день нашего вот этого курса международной феминистической школы, которая организуется в рамках проекта, спонсируемая форумом гражданского общества Восточного партнерства. И в этом проекте участвуют все 6 стран. И под координацией идет общая координация организации, находящейся в Украине, во Львове. Организация называется «Женские перспективы», Центр женских перспектив. И я очень рада сегодня модерировать эту сессию. И на самом деле прекрасную модерацию уже начала за меня сделала Лика, потому что она показала, в принципе, какие вопросы сегодня будут обсуждаться. Сегодня на самом деле действительно очень важная тема, и мне реально очень интересно ее послушать, потому что Лия Надарай, наша очень хорошая коллега из Грузии, она является уже много лет членом CEDAW комитета. И CEDAW комитет, будучи в CEDAW комитете, она как раз-таки поможет нам показать все изъяны наших альтернативных либо теневых отчетов и как сделать так, чтобы исправить на самом деле качество наших отчетов и сделать вообще работу, не только даже в отчетности, а вообще как сделать нашу работу таким образом, чтобы мы смогли реально показать проблемы и в то же время суметь потом поработать над непосредственно рекомендациями CEDAW комитета. Поэтому я думаю, что сегодня будет очень интересная тема. Первая вот тема сессия, так что я с большим удовольствием еще раз представляю и приглашаю вас уже непосредственно вести эту сессию, Лика. У нас, естественно, будут вопросы, но я думаю, первые полчаса, 45 минут, наверное, может быть, даже больше, будет непосредственно уже ваше выступление, ваш доклад. А потом мы в рамках, конечно, этой сессии постараемся задать самые наболевшие вопросы. Спасибо еще раз. Ваша очередь.
Thank you, dear Shahla. And forgive me for rushing in with presentation. I am not very good in subordination, you know, but I'll still try to frame my presentation in the way that we will have a structured outcome out of my presentation. So, as we said, how to improve reporting, and on one hand, and not forget that reporting is not an end is gender equality, and reporting is a cycle, it's not an end, and it has a future steps to be taken. So to see in a time frame long targets and see the steps, how we should move forward as a civil society organizations, as a platforms which exist on gender equality towards more crucial cooperation with entire system and improvement of results on the ground. So we receive, as you know, and you are in this process at the same amount of time as me, because I was presenting first alternative report of Georgia in '99, and many of you were in teams who presented first alternative reports of countries and have worked through all development cycle in our country. So many of you know that quality of alternative reports have very much improved if we take into account our first steps, and if we take into account absolute crisis of gender equality in our countries, discourse at that period, and and it has improved, and our capacity has grown. But where we are today, and in comparison to well-developed societies with bigger resources and well-structured institutions for gender equality, and which is also very important component for growth of civil society engagement in the public discourse. And if we take and how they report and where we standing today in the region generally, what are the lack of data we provide, and how we can improve the work. As you know, there are 3 types of reports which are provided throughout entire cycle on 3 stages of country reviews. And we will talk about those stages. These are reports concerning entire situation of women's human rights within the country, and usually it's compiled reports. It's also complementary reports, additions to government reports, which is elaborated by civil society, and there are thematic reports, elaborated by under concrete articles of the convention by the civil society. Generally speaking, we today, and if you go to OHR website, we'll see big amount of country reports gathered. They do not duplicate each other, and while it is an important component that there should not be a duplication on the while providing the information, target specific situations that committee can articulate with data and concrete cases in the case of reviews. So how we can evaluate where we are standing together today. Today our presentations have much improved. I wanted to congratulate our Moldovan colleagues for their very well structured and synchronized presentation, which they made during the review of their work, and entire capacity and unity. And it is a, I would not say new phenomena, but it's a good way of dealing with the situation, and it talks about maturity of civil society, that it is ready to deal with internal division caused by different insecurities within our societies. So first, that we should try always, while reporting to committee, keep a holistic approach and concentrate information the way that it is complementary to each other, and it's not overlapping each other. So another thing is that we should participate at all stages of reporting cycle, and we should monitor all cycles, all cycle, and see its development potentiality. I said that reports and receiving alternative reports and receive quality information is the most important aspect of moving forward gender equality agenda and women's human rights. So there should be huge effort made by our countries and international donor communities to bring capacity into civil society organizations to monitor not only implementation of concrete legal provisions, but also entire development picture in our countries. All foreign aid, all interventions by the foreign governments in our internal policies should have clear gender perspective, and we should work to broaden and put in the center of work on human rights the capacity of civil society organizations to monitor the situation within their countries from gender perspective. So there should be big accent, and it is made by the committee when we request additional research and statistical data, but it is made, it should be also the spot which we advocate within our countries and within our donor communities, that there should be further accent and more powerful policies to promote research on the ground and capacity of civil society organizations to shape the agenda of gender equality within the country. So it's a huge work. I would say that this school just shows the scale of work we should be doing in order to promote women's human rights on the ground and to promote our government's accountability and systemic approach in eliminating discrimination and promoting women's human rights. Another process I want to also discuss is itself the process of constructive dialogue. The process of constructive dialogue, to me, it's one of the most important processes of the work of country reporters with the countries, and also readiness. It shows readiness of countries to step forward. You may know, and it's not a revelation for all of you, that there is no country which is perfect concerning women's human rights and gender equality. And if we take worldwide review, there is a serious violations and harmful practices in many countries, and there is no perfection line in this regard. But what we consider that state that the review was successful, and when we see that it will give results, and I can tell you, we see it exactly with the same clearness as can see. I don't think any type of computer can scrutinize as quickly as committee members whether state party is ready to make change or it is not, and it is all revealed in constructive dialogue. Constructive dialogue really shows to what extent state party is ready to receive information regarding its development problems, regarding its progress, regarding to what extent it is open to hold accountability for human rights. And very often you can see and predict whether that state party will take account your reasoning and your argumentation and your knowledge-based goodwill consultancy into account and take steps towards progress and towards promoting accountability within the country, or whether it is defensive, it has its own only agenda is self-preservation and preservation of existing order and existing status quo. What is entitled to do state party? And this is revealed during dialogue. And that's why after dialogues, it's a very big work is done to scrutinize in details what will state party accept and what not, and how we should design and shape recommendations that it will be more appropriate and more acceptable and more easy for them to implement. But I would tell you that this process is also not free from civil society participation. And civil society is a big, let's say, big strength to the committees in assisting and in conducting advisory function, how to work with the state party on the international level. So that dialogue, the same simultaneously means dialogue with civil society, who will observe the details and who will afterwards communicate it with the alternative reporter, which is the main figure in promoting. So alternative reporter is have on your side. Alternative reporter is very important because alternative the country reporter can sort of orchestrate so that committee will bring the issues most important to you on the top of the agenda. Though I would not only rely on country reporter, and I will also work with a regional group entirely and as a whole with committee, because we do not have to forget that human rights are universal, and what we see in one part of world with other accents is developed in another. So work of with entire committee, even work and inclusion of committee in discourse about country is very important and essential in putting forward the agenda. What is and then we can say that in that cycle, again, with the help of civil society, is mandated monitoring and implementation of concluding observations. So civil society partners with human rights standards regarding reporting to human rights committees and regarding strategizing, collecting information and participating at all stages of the reporting. So another important aspect which I want to underline is a cooperation with the state. Cooperation with the state needs the same systemic approach and the same oversight alongside Parliament, supreme audit institutions, of other monitoring agencies and the media. So cooperation with the state and monitoring of all steps taken by the state is essential to the strengthening domestic accountability systems and promoting a role of CSOs in policy formation. What can we say about CEDAW itself regarding the topic we covered today? CEDAW is an instrument which is phrased as a crown of women's human rights. It's a living document which puts in frames in frame of discrimination, women's human rights, and it's a document which is addressing emerging issues with the lens of non-discrimination and gender equality and women's human rights. For gender equality, we are working in CEDAW for future. But regarding women's human rights. As you know, when CEDAW was formed, there was no specific article regarding violence against women in CEDAW, which and violence was against women was interpreted with under Article 5 as a critical form of discrimination against women. And this gap that there is not a specific article which is addressing violence against women under CEDAW was caused a huge debate on international arena. There was a debate that there should be additional convention on women's human rights, which addresses only there is also debate, but this debate was lost several times because of the fact that new convention on women's human rights will cause only split of resources and will not bring sustainable result. The fact that CEDAW is not implemented is and the fact that we are facing many obstacles regarding system is caused, in fact, that it is lacking resources and additional split of resources on women's human rights would have even worsened this situation, and that's why we are against it. So it is at this stage decided to say no to another treaty, but to promote addressing violence against women under CEDAW. And thus, that's why CEDAW developed, and as you may know, general recommendations and guiding notes of the committee serve the aim of addressing issues with contemporary frame and with contemporary lens, and it's very, it gives CEDAW strength to update itself to contemporary standards, and that's why it is a living document. So on violence against women, there is a recent, the brilliant general recommendation, which was elaborated in '77. It's in 2017. It is general recommendation 35. And you, if you had a chance to read this general recommendation and to be acquainted with it, it will show its resemblance with Istanbul Convention in its rhetorics and its contemporary vision of addressing violence against women in many cases. But except that, on this stage, CEDAW is developing a guidance note for state parties on implementation of their obligations and their accountability as set out in General Recommendation number 35 on gender-based violence against women and updating General Recommendation number 19. That is gender, anti-gender movements have many aspects that can be addressed under CEDAW. It's not only Article 5, and it's not only general recommendations that guide us through it. Anti-gender movements can be addressed under many sensitive articles, from Article 2 to access to justice, for Article 3, efficiency of national institutions and policies, Article 4 for temporary special measures and time-bounded and result-oriented interventions, to Article 5, which is a broad article covering vow and stereotyping, Article 6 in trafficking in women, which is less connected with the issue, but if we take into account new general recommendation on women in trafficking and sexual exploitation, you will see the connectedness between stereotyping, between violence against women and trafficking in women. So it's all interconnected. There are no separate rights under separate articles. It should be read as a holistically, but it can be addressed Article 7, political and equal participation in public life, in diplomacy not to allowing the other states' influences to diminish our human rights, and health, education, social rights, family. All these articles are workable for addressing holistic vision of anti-gender movements and exposing it for scrutiny. So, I don't want to sort of skip from one thing to another, because these all aspects are very important and very requires a big attention and work, and that's why, like, introducing all machineries which can be used for addressing anti-gender movements, I think is above today's expectation. But I would say that there are other human rights mandates which work on HR and LBT rights, and can be involved in the work with treaty bodies. Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, its Causes and Consequences, Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Defenders, Working Group on the Discrimination Against Women in Law in Practice, Independent Experts on Protection Against Violence and Discrimination based on Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. So there are 44 thematic areas and 11 country mandates. But through this mandates, if we scrutinize all of them, we see that these mandates are closer to women's human rights and the concrete theme of our discussion, anti-gender movements. So work with these mechanisms is also very important. I would say that about CEDAW's optional protocol also, that optional protocol can be used for and well utilized, I would say, for conducting inquiries. Unfortunately, in our small region, we never had an inquiry. First inquiry, which was conducted in post-Soviet and post-Soviet territory, was conducted by me 4 years ago, and it was Kyrgyz inquiry. Until then, we have received requests for involvement from our region, but unfortunately they were lacking argumentation in showing that this is a systemic and severe form of discrimination, and that's why they were not promoted. But I would also name the fact that there was a lack of gender experts always on the committee from Eastern Europe. since its establishment, and only recently the experts from our region started more or less entering, and the Eastern European group attained voice, because now we have 4 members, and that means something on the committee. When you are only 2 members, then it's much more difficult to fight world's attention to the problems of your region and your specific area of thematic interest. So it is also advocacy process, and we should see that strengthening regional subgroups within the committees. It's not only, it's a CEDAW committee, but we had a member from Grevio, from regional body, strengthening regional presence in committee, very important. And it also needs expertise, and it also needs big commitment from human rights defenders, who are again in avant-garde of setting new requirements for promoting experts from our region and inclusion on international arena. Between human rights treaties, there is also important process which is going on right now. It is called strengthening of treaty bodies system, and the process is quite painful at the moment, because but it's very productive, because internally it also helps committees to work more sufficiently with less overlapping between each other as it was before, as well as synchronize special methods and bring cross-cutting themes and make statements on that cross-cutting themes, in a distant promote cooperation, because the cooperation and the systemic approach is necessary even within the work of human rights treaty bodies, and within entire system. As you know, except the CEDAW international human rights treaties are committee, international monitoring bodies are Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, Committee on Economic and Social and Cultural Rights, Human Rights Committee, Committee on Against Torture, Committee on Rights of Child, Committee of Migrant Workers, Subcommittee on Prevention of Torture, Committee on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and Committee on Enforced Disappearance. And the process of sort of work and process of synchronization is a process which is ongoing right now on the committee, between committees, and is important from better addressing by the system of women's human rights. Now, by the end, I will say that as we can see on the ground, the gaps between work of the between ourselves on the ground, what is not done, or what is systemic failure to address, and etc. The same approach should be done on international level and regional levels also. There is a required synergies on strengthening response on anti-gender movements in Eastern Europe, and we see clearly. To me, this should be done through sharing synergies between different bodies who address gender equality and women's human rights, as well as their work with the country governments and the civil society. But as I told you, civil society is our best partner. And what are these bodies? And what are structure which I see and the synergy which I perceive will help promoting anti-gender response in our countries. First of all, and this should be somehow involved the committee itself, and especially representatives of our subgroup. Next year, there will be vice chair for Eastern Europe, very, very interesting woman. She is from Bulgaria, and we have, and she's working on violence against women, and that's why we will very much benefit from her expertise in this stance, and she is the head of working group on development of this note, a general note on violence against women, and I would very much welcome that we will strengthen our work with her. Her name is Genoveva Stisheva. Also, I think that special rapporteur on violence against women, its causes and consequences, should be involved in our future discussions, as well as special rapporteur on human rights defenders. I would also recommend that on a regional level, we will, in our work, we will involve independent expert on protection against violence and discrimination on the sexual orientation and gender identity, Mr. Gonzalez, who is a very interesting man, and Grevio representatives, and what is the most important synergy which should be elaborated, it's put in our target spots also: generation, equality, action, coalition on countering gender-based violence. I think through involvement, simultaneous involvement by civil society of the high-level experts as well as action coalitions will only contribute to further attention and policy discourse on the ground to promote equal world and women's human rights and gender equality. Thank you.
Огромное спасибо, Лика. Как всегда, было очень полезно, доступно, на хорошем языке, профессиональном и в то же время очень доступном. Спасибо большое. Я, как человек, работающий много лет с CEDAW комитетом и с теневыми отчетами, тоже взяла очень многое для себя. И я считаю, что вообще эта тема на самом деле такая достаточно широкая, и всегда есть возможности для усовершенствования своей работы, всегда. Причем это координационная работа, она, конечно, требует очень много времени, усилий, ну и, естественно, желания. Огромное спасибо за все подсказки от своего имени. Хочу открыть возможность для участников наших видимых и невидимых для вопросов. Есть ли вопросы, пожалуйста? Можно на обоих языках, можно на русском и на английском. Лика может ответить на русском языке тоже, от себя говорю. Лика, пока вопросы подоспеют, хотела бы узнать текущее положение. То есть на сегодняшний день из-за пандемии очень много сессий отложено на следующие годы, в том числе и ревью по Азербайджану. Вот хочу узнать, что будет дальше. То есть я знаю, что в 2021 году как бы назначает, еще не назначена конкретная дата, но должен быть вот такой ревью. Что будет, если пандемия продлится? Все-таки обсуждается возможность онлайн-ревью или это все-таки должно быть обязательно офлайн?
Из-за специфики самого процесса ревью, из-за того, что это очень чувствительный процесс, и от него зависит очень многое. Вот если бы сама бы не видела, когда хорошее ревью, какой прогресс наступает у стран. И я не могу сказать, что значит хорошо работать на международном уровне. Это дипломатия, это одновременно поощрение нового видения. То есть это очень-очень чуткий дипломатический процесс. И в онлайн, в режиме, особенно в режиме CEDAW, когда у кого-то 3 часа ночи, а у кого-то 3 у нас был, когда проводим онлайн-сессии, некоторые, особенно наша японская подруга из того полушария, они в жутком положении. То есть, и потом еще инфраструктура. Интернет же не везде одинаковый. То есть, Chair у нас from Ghana, and she's brilliant woman. She is wonderful expert and lawyer and pure feminist legal champion, I would say. But she could not participate because in a review, because it was, and we are 23 experts. So it's very difficult. So we are against reviews because it will not be the quality which is required from international body. We are not doing just scrutiny on, and it will not impact just 5%, but it will impact entire policies during 4 years in the country. So we can't take responsibility for unprofessional and low quality reviews. So this is a problem. Another problem is that it was decided, and tomorrow we are going to meet on this to discuss this issue, is that we will take as a pilot very well-developed monitoring potential country, let's say, some well-developed country from, for example, from Western Europe, for example, Spain, and conduct, because Spain is holding now, should be reviewed, and take Spain and try pilot, because these pilot reviews have been done by many other committees, and try for the next session, and hope that in summer we will have opportunity to meet, and then we will have sessions. I think all preliminary works will be done during on sessions during our remote meetings, and afterwards and only reviews and concluding observations, which need united work of committee. And otherwise we will not be able to ensure universality. And that is why committees we are holding account for universality, and we can't hold it regionally only. And that's why we think that Azerbaijan can be reviewed in this stand only maybe in October.
Next October.
Next October. Because many states were ahead of Azerbaijan, like Kyrgyz Republic. Many from our part, they were ahead, and they should have been reviewed this summer. And that's why Azerbaijan will be, I think, in October, and I'm looking forward to seeing you and being proud of your wonderful and artistic presentations.
Thank you. Thank you, Lia. Окей, Марта, да, у вас вопрос?
Да, спасибо большое, Лика, за очень интересную такую структурированную презентацию. Я хотела спросить вообще по работе CEDAW комитета с такой причины. Один из прошлых докладов нашей страны Украины получил рекомендации CEDAW, и перед рекомендациями есть преамбула, и CEDAW поздравляет там страну с теми достижениями, которые страна за это время достигла. И в этой преамбуле пишется, что CEDAW комитет поздравляет Украину с тем, что Украина приняла закон о, я не помню, о гендерном равенстве или о домашнем насилии, я уже не помню, какой именно это был закон, но в это время никакого закона еще не было принято. И он был на рассмотрении в парламенте, но на тот момент никакого закона еще не было. И у меня, то есть, видимо, наш государственный отчет не был прозрачным, и было понятно, что, наверное, CEDAW комитет понял, что мы уже имеем этот закон. Есть ли какие-то механизмы как бы проверки тех отчетов, проверки, кроме там shadow reports, alternative reports, letters и так дальше, потому что, я так понимаю, что государство может многое выдавать за действительное, то, что оно еще пока не достигла или не ратифицировала, не приняла, не ввела в действие и так дальше. Какие есть у вас превентивные такие инструменты для того, чтобы такого было меньше? Спасибо большое.
Ну, превентивные институты, well, I will go ahead with English. Also, how we try to prevent, that's why the entire system is created. There is an alternative report, there are UNCT reports, there are observations of treaty bodies which are scrutinized by task team on country and from articles. So also you could have written to Secretariat, civil society organizations, and you would have written to secretariats and say that it's not right, and they should change their recommendations. So it was not clear for government. So we do not have anything except yourself, except UNCT information, and except other treaty bodies which can consult us. So if you found out false information, you should have inform the committee and inform the secretariat, first of all. Also, what is the importance is that important is that we monitor. So we can't rely. We do not rely on government information, and that's why we are taking all pain of overviewing other documentation. And that's why it's important. Again, you remember my critical analysis and of work of committee when I first entered. As you may remember, we were only 2 experts, and from these 2 experts, one became chair. What means that she did not participate in country reviews, because chair has a big obligation, and she is on international arena, and she is in charge of setting up our future communication and our future synergies. That's what I wrote here. It's not on level of CEDAW of civil society to discuss, but it's on a level of chair to discuss that we should strengthen synergy between these mandates to work on specific problems in Eastern Europe. Though we can be both. We can be inspirers of the process also. As you may know, formation of UN Women was a civil process, and it started from a civil movement. So we can use the same techniques for promoting some good institutional structures for addressing issues in our region.
Спасибо большое. Если можно еще один вопрос, тоже по внутренней такой кухне CEDAW комитета.
Марта, Лика, вы, пожалуйста, кадр уберите, потому что там есть частные имейлы. Просто потому что у нас идет прямая трансляция в Facebook. Просто вернитесь в презентацию.
Спасибо, Ира.
Ой, почему вы мне не сказали?
Да.
А это было очень давно открыто. Я не могу видеть, почему-то я потеряла.
Остановите share screen. Да, правильно?
Да, сейчас на экране видны ваш имейл. Лучше его тоже убрать.
Где мой имейл? У меня нет имейла открытого.
Есть, у вас есть Яндекс.Почта. Вот я ее вижу на экране. Просто закройте. Да. Все, отлично. Все.
Я, если можно, задам еще один вопрос. Я знаю,
все это вы можете убрать потом, чтобы моя лекция не была на фоне имейлов?
Попробуем. Лика, я последний вопрос задам, чтобы не перебирать времени. Прошлый репорт от Украины, вы, как представительница комитета, были сначала были назначены как репортер по Украине. И были потом какие-то, не знаю, какие-то пересмотры, и вам не дали делать репорт по Украине от CEDAW, а передали это право другому члену комитета. Я понимаю, что это влияние политических таких, не знаю, аспектов на работу членов CEDAW комитета, и много ли таких влияний политических, это первый вопрос, и какие вы видите инструменты, чтобы это политическое влияние как-то минимализировать? Спасибо большое.
Во-первых, first of all, we are in very operating in a very heavy political environment. You can see it in UN that it's a huge political organization with huge political incentives, and where even human rights, entire system with its Human Rights Council and with all bodies around it only constitutes 3% of the budget of United Nations, and in spite of the fact that it's only 3% of the budget of United Nations, it is always under attacks, and it is always under scrutiny, and there is always under resourcing of the instruments, and sort of different political actors have a big impact, and you know that it can't be freed from political process. So we should accept it as a political process, and we should navigate in this political process. I would not say that I am a professional diplomat and or I have any skills of diplomatic negotiations, but otherwise, on that level, you will not succeed. It's important, and negotiation and dialogues are important. And very often, we see that political interests and political interests of special regions are over human rights interest and are over impartiality, what is required from the experts. We have internal rules. And these internal rules are also demonstrated in different documents, especially in documents on impartiality of experts, where we give our solemn declaration that we will act on impartial basis and without any political interest, but in a reality to free humans from political interests, it's very difficult. So as usual, as in every committees, there are figures who are very good at political negotiations and who have huge expertise in this field. There are, and they navigate in that field, and there are experts which are trying to hold, and among them I would not be modest and not list myself the least, are voicing women's human rights and feminist agenda. And there are many experts of such, so we should not say that we are lacking of them, but as we are elected by state parties, we have experts who have more political orientation than others. So that is why committee is working as a holistic organization, and we not only promote our diversity, it is in our mandate that we should be diverse. We should not be monotonic. Otherwise, we will not be able to scrutinize human rights from universal perspective.
Спасибо большое. Лика, тут у вас написано, вы делитесь экраном, share screen.
А я не хочу это делать.
Да, вы просто сделайте end, там такая красная кнопочка. Сверху, ну ладно. Я вижу, Марина поднимает руку.
Здравствуйте, Лика. Благодарна очень жіночим перспективам за возможность с вами поговорить. Меня зовут Марина Руденко. Я принимала участие в подготовке предыдущих отчетов. И недавно я смотрела сайт комитета и обнаружила, что в прошлом году отчитывалась Россия, подавала свой отчет, и в рекомендациях, которые они получили в 2015 году, 2, 29 и 30, они касаются подачи информации по защите прав женщин в Крыму и на temporary occupied territory of east of Ukraine. Ну, тяжело на русский переводить, извините.
Да, конечно.
Okay, so could you please advise how to submit in the best way the information, like a shadow information, to the attention of the committee? Because as I do understand, Ukrainian civil society, women's civil society organizations could submit information to the committee in January. So I contacted the CEDAW secretariat and sent information to civil society organizations, Ukrainian, and number of them are ready to submit this information regarding two concluding observations to the Russia. And could you please advise how to do this in the best way? So what is important for the committee to take the information from the Ukrainian civil society?
First of all, I want to talk about extraterritoriality of application of CEDAW. We see that CEDAW application of CEDAW has an extraterritorial dimension, and we receive reports from different countries on conflicting countries and etc. And also we receive information regarding this extraterritorial application, regarding arm trade, for example, regarding arm trade and regarding mining and regarding conflicts. 3 types of extraterritorial application. Until now, we have not received, and you can freely submit. There is not a limitation that only Ukrainian organizations can submit report to Russia, but also international organizations and local organizations also from Ukraine can submit the reports to Russia as an extraterritorial application of CEDAW is clear for everyone. But we have not, for example, till now, for 6 years, we've never received information regarding, for example, funding or conducting anti-gender interventions within the countries. So this is also an important aspect where we can work. It's submitting to state parties who violate women's human rights through promoting under-gender movements. In other words, we can submit information on country levels as a countries, but as an international group also. This is open for discourse. And this is very, this should be moved forward, but because as I told you, we receive only information, conducting armed trade, which has direct impact of rise of violence against women in certain countries, and this was monitored and showed to committee. We had information regarding mining industries, of very, very gender sensitive country, but who is conducting mining industries, who is ruining lives of women in somewhere in Africa. So state parties are not only scrutinized through their internal performance, but in their performance everywhere, in their development programs, in their trade agreements, in their diplomatic mission activities, and we can scrutinize state party under different articles from the perspective of women human rights, what they contribute to women's human rights, or they not, and that's it.
Okay, thank you for your response. Yeah, and this concluding observation is related Ukraine and the situation in Ukraine and Georgia. And what is the better, to submit a common information, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. On that level, it does not matter anymore. If both 6 countries will submit, it will be the same as one. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
Лика, большое спасибо. У нас немножечко на исходе уже время. Я благодарю вас от своего имени, от имени участников. Я знаю, что будет у нас еще возможности пообщаться в рамках этого проекта, в рамках других проектов. И я знаю, что вы очень доступный человек. Я знаю, что вы отвечаете на все вопросы, с удовольствием участвуете на всех мероприятиях и возможностях, где можно усилить навыки женщин, женщин-активистов, правозащитников, а также женские организации. Так что это далеко не последняя встреча. Я вас благодарю за вашу подготовку, за этот замечательный доклад. А с участниками я прощаюсь буквально на полчаса. Следующая сессия будет моя, и я с большим удовольствием расскажу о ситуации по насилию против женщин в Азербайджане, а также о перспективе и проблемах с Истамбульской конвенцией в Азербайджане. Так что остаемся на связи и через полчаса встретимся. Спасибо еще раз за внимание.
Большое спасибо и извините for screen sharing.
Бывает. Спасибо. До свидания.